Hello everyone, all 22 and a few film review, giving you guys the next episode of Draft Wraps, my draft class analysis series where we dive deep into all 32 classes, letting you guys know how I feel about every pick, according to my big board, who's left on the board positionally, is it a team need, is it a scheme fit, we'll be talking about paths to starting, and kind of paths for immediate role if I see that for the player. So if you want to learn more about the Saints class that we're going to be talking about today, or you want to learn more about any of the other 31 classes, make sure you stick around, subscribe, go through the channel, do whatever you got to do to make sure you don't miss any of the videos or your favorite team as we round out the class here, or the NFL draft class here, as we only got 8 videos to go after this one. Like I said, we're going to be talking about the Saints today with my 9th class, coming in with an A-, a 3.28875 grade. That numerical grade coming from an equation that I made for you guys, so you guys can have more of a concrete feeling about how I feel about every class, so you guys can kind of stack the different letter grades or same letter grades, see how far different kind of classes are to each other. Now the video is going to be more about the individual grades and analysis for the picks, but that equation, that numerical grade, just kind of an extra fun thing we could come back to, see where I was right, see where I was wrong, see where I could learn, all that good stuff. But let's get into the Saints class here. Like I said, an A-, a very, very good class. They hit all their needs I wanted to, some a little bit later than I wanted them to, but I still think they hit all of their needs pretty well in this class. I really wanted them to get a quarterback even before the Derek Carr injury. Now after that Derek Carr injury, it was pretty apparent that they were going to go in that direction. Also wanted them to go after an outside cornerback at some point in this class and inside linebacker depth. Now as they did that, we'll talk about those kind of position groups as we get later into the class. But let's start out with Kelvin Banks Jr. here, a tackle out of Texas. Then they go Tyler Shook, quarterback out of Louisville. Vernon Broughton, an IDO out of Texas. Jonas Sanker, a safety out of Virginia. Danny Stutzman, a linebacker out of Oklahoma. Quincy Riley, a cornerback out of Louisville. Devin Neal, a running back out of Kansas. Malachi Montavo, a tight end out of UCLA. And Philo Diggs, an edge out of Syracuse. Like I said, very, very good class here. Let's go into Kelvin Banks, their first pick, with the 9th pick in the class, a tackle out of Texas. I really like this pick for them. I gave it an A. He was my 13th player graded on my big board, taken at 9, so I think it is a very solid value. He was my 4th tackle ranked and the 3rd one taken off the board. Now, Josh Simmons wasn't going to be taken before Kelvin Banks because of that injury. He was going to fall. He did all the way down to 31. So I wasn't surprised to see Kelvin Banks go before him, and I 100% understand why he would go before him. So positionally, I 100% understand it. I think it is a good value. And for this team, I think it is a great, great fit. It allows Talise Fuanga, who was a right tackle coming out of last year's class, to slide back over to the right tackle slide, where he's going to be kind of more of a natural fit over there. He's not going to be forced to be relearning his hand and foot movements over on the left side anymore. So allow him to be more natural at his spot, bring Kelvin Banks in to be great at that left tackle spot. He was a true first-round talent, in my opinion. A very, very, very good player. Not an overwhelming athlete, but definitely moves fine enough to fit in any scheme. Has a very, very good anchor and just very nice hands in pass pro. He's very technically sound. One of the more technically sound tackles in this class. A very nice size tackle as well, at 6 foot 315. Only going to be 21 in his rookie season as well. Put up an 8.34 RAS score. Like I said, not a superb athlete, but definitely moves well enough to fit in any scheme you would want him to. I expect him to be good in year 1 and good for a lot of years down the line. This was a very, very good tackle in my opinion, and upgrades this line very, very well. They've had very suspect tackle play ever since Ryan Ramczyk hasn't been able to stay healthy for them. They had Trevor Penning out there who wasn't the best pick. Hopefully Kelvin Banks could come in and help solidify that line, and Talise Fuanga, who looked pretty solid in year 1, can continue to build on his rookie season. Had 538 pass block snaps in 2024. On that, he allowed 1 sack, 2 hits, and only 7 hurries. Was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, a freshman All-American for Texas, and a 2024 first-team All-American, first-team SEC, the Outland Award winner, which is the best overall lineman, offense or defense in the nation, and the Lombardi Award, which is just the best overall offensive lineman in general. like I said, very, very good pick to me. Absolutely love this for them in 8th grade. Next, they go Tyler Shook, a quarterback out of Louisville, with the 40th pick, the 8th pick of the 2nd round. This was a solid pick to me. Like I said, I wanted them to go after quarterback in this class. Was going to definitely happen after the Derek Carr injury news came out. You weren't going to start Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener for a complete season this year after what they showed in last season. I think he was the best quarterback on the board outside of Shedeur Sanders. I did have Shedeur Sanders rated above him, but he was my 3rd quarterback, and he was the 3rd one taken. So in terms of positional value, I don't hate it at all. In terms of true value, a little bit early for me. I thought he was more of a 3rd round type guy. Now I understand why he goes at the spot, because if you don't take him here, you're not going to be able to get him. I don't think Jackson Dart goes in the 1st. Dylan Gabriel goes in the 3rd. Shedeur Sanders falls all the way to the 5th, which no one really expected. But Jalen Milroe also goes in the 3rd. If Tyler Shook was still on the board, he was 100% going to go probably before their next pick at 71. You have to make sure you get your quarterback, arguably, and which most people would agree on is the most important position on the field, regardless of offense or defense. You had to get your QB, and, if you didn't want to kind of take on all the Shedeur Sanders trauma, he was definitely the best quarterback on the board. So I don't hate it. I give it a B+. Again, just a little bit early for me in terms of true value, but I understand it, especially for this offense. I think he plays in a lot of ways like Derek Carr. I think that is kind of his upside, is to become somewhat like Derek Carr. You don't have to change your offense a ton, bringing him in to this building if you think you can mold him into kind of what Derek Carr was. So I absolutely love it for them in that sense as well. I think it is a very, very good fit if they don't want to try to kind of change what they were doing offensively. Wouldn't be surprised if they still did, but he fits well for that reason. A 6'5", 219-pound quarterback, definitely has the height, but is a little bit thin for 6'5", and had a lot of injuries throughout his career. I'm pretty sure it was 2 season-ending injuries, one of them being last year, and then one of them being in 2022, or 2021, and then in 2022 he still missed about 6 games. So you definitely kind of are a little bit concerned about his ability to stay healthy. Going to be 26 during his rookie year, which you definitely don't love, but for quarterback doesn't really matter as much as other positions. This position requires some of the least athletic ability of positions in the NFL relative to kind of the athletic ability of those positions. He is not a bad athlete at all, but still, if he's coming in at 26, you're not 100% worried. It's not like he is a true dual threat quarterback where running is the main focus of his game. It's not a giant concern. Put up a 9.7 RAS, going to be mostly due to his height. Definitely moves to well, kind of sneakily well. You definitely wouldn't expect him to put up that kind of a number, but not an outwardly athlete. He's not, a Josh Allen or a Lamar or a Kyler or a Jalen Milroe. He's not in that athletic type of mold, so isn't really a big part of his game. But in 2024, had 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 3,195 yards, 62.7% completion percentage, 8.2 yards per attempt, and a 101.1 passer rating on the season. A 2024 ACC honorable mention and a National Comeback Player of the Year in his first year at Louisville. Spent 3 years at Oregon and Texas Tech before coming over to Louisville, a very, very storied quarterback. That is why he is going to be 26 during his rookie year. A lot of season-ending injuries for him. Very unfortunate for the player, but you like seeing him come to a new situation, staying healthy for the season, and having a very strong year, catapulting himself into this quarterback conversation. A very solid pick. Again, a B+ for me. Their next pick, they go Vernon Broughton, an IDL out of Texas, at 71, the 3rd pick of the 7th round. I absolutely love Vernon Broughton. I absolutely love him. He was my 11th IDL, and on my kind of top 10 defensive position rankings video, I shouted him out and talked about how hard it was not putting him in my kind of top 10 defensive line video, or it was in my top 75 video. I talked about that because he did make my top 75. Had a really hard time not putting him in my top 10 IDLs. Really hard time. He was such a fun player to watch. Very solid on early downs. Not as good as Alfred Collins, his teammate over there, but still very solid. A very good at shedding one-on-one blocks and penetrating into the backfield. Also shows, honestly, surprising bit of pass rush ability. He was a surprisingly good pass rusher. Not the most hip mobility or ability to clear offensive linemen with his hips, but a lot of power, still decent ability to get around people, and showed a decent amount of moves, a surprising amount of moves. So I really liked Vernon Broughton, man. Very, very, very fun player to watch. Was my 69th overall player on my big board, taken at 71. So I think it is a great value. He, like I said, my 11th IDL, he was the 11th one taken off the board. So in terms of positional value, I think it is a great value as well. This should be an A grade, but it is an A minus for me because of the amount of bodies in their IDL room. They bring in Devon Godshaw from the Patriots. They have Brian Brzee, who hasn't played well in the last 2 years, but he still was a first-round pick taken 2 years ago. So they're still going to want to give him a lot of reps and try to keep, seeing what they can get out of him. They have Kalen Saunders and Nathan Shepard in there as well, who are definitely not bad depth pieces. And then they have Christian Boyd, who was a 6th-round pick last year. It was a very fun 6th-round pick. And even John Ridgway, who they have acquired in recent years. So the path to starting for him is just really, really murky. If he was taken into kind of a lighter room, this would be a higher graded pick. Still an A-, still not a bad pick at all. I still love the player. I think he is going to compete for their 3rd or 4th IDL spot and a lot of early down snaps immediately. That is kind of how highly I view the player, but still a very, very deep IDL room. Even if it isn't a super top end room, there is a lot of bodies there, a lot of competition. He's going to have a lot of dudes to work through to move up the depth chart. So that's the only reason it's an A- for me. But still, I love the player. I think he's a good fit for this defense, and I think he is a good value. A-. Their next pick, Jonas Sanker, a safety out of Virginia, taken with the 93rd pick, the 29th pick of the 3rd round. Getting this as part of the Marshawn Lattimore trade, sending Marshawn Lattimore and pick 147 over to the Commanders for 93, 131, and 184. This is going to be kind of the same story with the Vernon Broughton pick. I think it's a good value. He was 89th ranked on my big board, taken at 93. He was my 6th overall safety. He was the 5th one taken off the board. So in terms of true positional value, I don't think it's a bad pick in that sense either. There's just a lot of guys in that room, and some I think he's a little bit redundant with. Tyrann Mathieu getting older, he's definitely not going to be in that room for many more years. But they do bring in Justin Reed from the Kansas City Chiefs on a pretty decent contract, starting money for a safety. And then they also have Jordan Howden, who was a late round pick in recent years, but has honestly played a lot of meaningful snaps for them and has played some very solid snaps. He's not been a bad player at all. And I think he is a little bit redundant to not 100% the skill set, but the role that Jonas Sanker would be playing. So there's just, again, a decent amount of dudes in that safety room. I don't think he's necessarily going to take that starting spot from Jordan Howden once a starting spot kind of opens up. And there's not going to be a starting spot opening up this year. So going to be competing for that 3rd safety spot, I think most likely is going to be their 4th safety. So I do really like the player. I really like I think it is a good fit for them still. I think it is a good value. There's just a lot of guys ahead of them. I don't think this was a big position of need for them. So it does get an A- for me. A 6 foot, 206 pound safety, going to be 22 during his rookie season and turn 23 towards kind of the middle to late end of the season. Going to turn 23 during his rookie year. Put up a 7.05 RAS. Not the most electric tester in the world, but definitely moves well enough to kind of feel comfortable with him on the field. Not a bad athlete in all my opinion. I was a little bit surprised to see a 7.05. Had 1 interception, 4 PBUs, 98 tackles, 8.5 TFLs, 2 sacks, and 1 blocked kick on the season. A 2-time first-team ACC selection in 2024 and 2023, and a 3-year starter at Virginia. Very experienced player, been playing at a high level over the last few years. Very high motor, kind of fly around type safety. Not the cleanest safety in terms of angles and tackling, shedding blocks, but I think he's still a very feisty player that's going to fill in a role near the box or in the overhang type role. He's going to kind of grow into that. Like Jonas Sanker a lot. I think this is a good value for them. But again, a lot of guys in the room, going to be an A- for me. Their next pick, they go Danny Stutzman, a linebacker out of Oklahoma, with the 112th pick, the 110th pick of the 4th round. this was as close to an I love it pick as you can get to me without it being an I love it pick. Now, as a reminder to you guys, as we get into the day 3 grades, they're going to be graded on a different scale than the day 1 and 2 grades. Day 1 and 2 graded on a letter grade basis, as day 1 and 2 are kind of taken in a different vision for these teams. They more go for BPA, and BPA 4 needs the best player available. Day 3, much more of getting guys to fill aspects of a position group, not necessarily upgrade the entire group on a starting or backup basis, but upgrade aspects of it, whether it be a deep threat wide receiver for a room that doesn't have a lot of juice, a big run-stuffing interior guy for a team that was very lackluster against the run, grabbing a kind of safety converted to linebacker to upgrade the pass coverage in a linebacker room if you have a lot of early down run stuffers, but you don't have a lot of guys that are fluent in pass coverage, that kind of stuff. Not guys you're slotting to be starters immediately or even in 1 or 2 years, but guys that'll see field time and earn roles based on an aspect they bring to a position group. And if they develop right, if they hit their upside, then eventually they will become starters or plus starters for the team. Danny Stutzman, man, I wanted to grade this and I love it big. Super, super close. Also, on these kind of day 3 grades, I'll have a more concrete definition in the description below, as well as kind of explanations on anything you're seeing on your board as far as abbreviations, grades, where I'm getting information, all that stuff. It's in the description. So if you have any questions, make sure you check the description. And if it's not in there, come scream at me. Always fine with you guys yelling at me in the comments. Come let me know. Also, just engage with me down below in general. I love hearing your guys' opinions, what you guys think, even if you're disagreeing with me, giving me constructive criticism. It's always nice to see people kind of leaving their opinions. So let me know down below. But again, if you have questions, check out the description. Danny Stutzman, a linebacker out of Oklahoma, super good pick in my opinion. My 3rd overall linebacker in this class. I was really high on him. I thought he was more of a 3rd round type guy. Did think he was going to fall to the 4th. Gets taken at the high end of the 4th with the 10th pick in the 4th. So I think this is very good value for him. Not exceptional value, but good value. I thought he was going to go somewhere late in the 3rd to early 4th. I was a lot higher on him than kind of the rest of the league, as far as I thought at least. Now, this would be an I love it if Demario Davis or P. Werner weren't there. Also, if they hadn't taken a linebacker, Jalen Jones, in the 5th round last year and have, I'm pretty sure it's DeMarco Jackson, who they took in the 5th round 3 years ago. Again, a decent amount of guys he's got to compete with, not the clearest path to starting, especially because Demario Davis is so good and P. Werner is good himself. Now, I wanted them to go after inside linebacker depth because Demario Davis is going to be on his way out. He is a much older guy. I think he, if they don't do well at someone in this season, he might get traded. Not 100% sure just because he has been such a mainstay for this team, but I wouldn't be surprised if they went that route if they aren't successful in the early parts of the season. Still such a good linebacker still, but he is very, very, very aged for his kind of position. I wanted them to get a high-end linebacker. Now, since he's taken in the 4th, I'm not 100% sure, where they're going to slot him immediately. I think he is good enough, and he should be their 3rd LB, and I wouldn't be surprised if he earned that 3rd LB spot immediately because he is that good. But because he was taken in a similar round to guys they've taken in the last year and last few years, I'm not 100% sure if they're going to try to give him those chances or slot him above those guys immediately. I still think he is a very, very good player. And I think in a few years, if not at some point this year, he should be earning a lot of reps for this team as their LB3 or potentially as their LB2 if they do move on from a Demario Davis. But again, I wanted to grade this and I love it. Just couldn't 100% do it. He is a 6'3", 233-pound linebacker. You're going to be a 22-year-old through his rookie season. Put up a 9.62 RAS. I was a little bit surprised by those numbers. He's a very good athlete. I think he is a very good athlete. I thought he was going to be more low 9s, not high 9s. But you do love to see those testing numbers for him. A very, very, very nice athlete. 110 tackles, 8 TFLs, and 1 sack on the season to go with 15 missed tackles. You definitely don't like to see that. Has got to clean up the missed tackles a little bit, but not a bad tackler. It's not like he's got a ton to go in that sense. Didn't have a ton of ball production, no pass deflections, no interceptions on the season, no turnovers in general, but a very solid coverage player, honestly, I was very surprised by his coverage feel. I feel like he was a much more day one coverage player than most linebackers in this class, especially ones that went before him, in Demetrius Knight. I thought he was not a better pass coverage player than Carson Schwessinger, obviously, but a much better run defense player than Carson Schwessinger. I really, really, really like Danny Stutzman. Again, wanted to grade it, and I love it. I just couldn't do it. A 2024 second-team All-American and a first-team SEC selection in this last season. Was also an All-American, I think a third-team All-American selection last year, a 3-year starter for Oklahoma. He's been doing it well for a long time for this room. A very, very good player. I like it a lot for them. Their next pick, they go Quincy Riley, a cornerback out of Louisville, with the 29th pick in the 4th, pick 131. Getting this, again, from the Marshawn Lattimore trade, where they sent Marshawn Lattimore in 147 over 493, 131, and 184. This got an I love it grade for me. I absolutely loved this pick for them. I thought Quincy Riley was more towards the early part of a 4th round type of player. I wouldn't have been surprised in this cornerback class since it was a little bit thinner in depth if he went in the back end of the 3rd, but more of a early 4th round guy. So getting him at the very back end of the 4th, I think is absolutely just very good value. Not exceptional value, but very good value. Absolutely love this pick because I think he has a chance to come in and start right away for this team. They have Kool-Aid McKinstry at one cornerback spot, who's definitely a solid player. You feel good about him as one of your outside corners. They also have Alontae Taylor, more of a nickelback type guy. Didn't play very, very well in this last season. They also bring in Isaac Yiadom, who is solid, but much more of a Band-Aid type piece on a very cheap, not long-term contract. You can draft another guy in that room and not feel bad if he's kind of starting over Isaac Yiadom. So I absolutely love this pick for them. I think Quincy Riley comes in year 1, and if he flashes a lot in that training camp, he's going to be starting outside sooner than later. I would not be surprised if he takes a starting outside job at some point during this season. That's why it gets an I love it for them. Absolutely exceptional value to get a starting outside piece at this late in the 4th round. A 5'11", 194-pound corner, going to be 24 in his rookie season. Didn't put up a RAS score, didn't have enough testing measurables, but not a bad athlete. Not a superb athlete, but not one you're super worried about on the outside. Had 2 interceptions, 13 PBUs, a 73 passer rating allowed when targeted in coverage, 33 tackles, 3 TFLs, and 1 forced fumble on the season. A 2024 second-team ACC selection and a 2-year starter at Louisville. Spent 3 years at Louisville before spending 3 years at Middle Tennessee State. Definitely a older prospect coming in at 24 already, but not a bad player at all. I would expect him to get a lot of snaps in year 1 and, take that job at some point during this year, if not next year. Next pick, they go Devin Neal, a running back out of Kansas with the 184th pick, the 8th pick of the 6th round. Again, getting this from the Marshawn Lattimore trade. Seems like that's where they got most of these picks. Setting over 147 and Lattimore for 93, 131, and 184. I absolutely love this pick. Again, an I love it grade. Don't know how Devin Neal fell this far, man. Absolutely bewildered to see him in the 6th in a very, very deep running back class. A lot of these running backs fell down the board. The only reason I see Devin Neal falling this far down is just due to true athleticism. Not a very athletic back, but such a just smart back. Has excellent vision, excellent contact balance, knows how to hit which holes when, knows when to let blockers get in front of him. He's patient. He's surprisingly shifty, without being athletic. Just a very good early down type of guy. I'm very confident he could come in and compete in this room immediately. They've given some snaps to Kendre Miller. He hasn't been the most flashiest back or high upside type back, so I wouldn't be surprised if Devin Neal absolutely just floors people in camp or in the preseason, or does the most with his snaps in the early part of the year and takes the second string job at some point this year. And then at, a couple years down the road when Alvin Kamara isn't in this room, he is your starting back. You never know how teams feel about their running backs as they get into their 30s. Teams wheel and deal them after they hit 30. So I wouldn't be surprised if Alvin Kamara doesn't have a ton of time remaining on this team and Devin Neal takes over this job in a year or two, man. He is a very, very good running back. 5'11", 213, going to be 22 in his rookie season. A 6.66 RAS. Like I said, not a very, very great athlete, but a very, very solid back, especially for the 6th round. I think this is exceptional value. Had 1,266 rushing yards on the year, 16 touchdowns, 5.8 yards per carry, 24 receptions on 31 targets for 254 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown, and only 1 fumble on the year. A 3-time Big 12 honorable mention and a 1-time second-team Big 12 selection at his 4 years at Kansas, having great production in all 4 years, set the school career rushing records for rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, and also total touchdowns. So breaking records, a lot of production for him. Just a very, very solid back. I would be very surprised if he comes into the league and he just isn't a solid back. He isn't a very athletic guy, but that isn't the end-all be-all at running back. We see guys that aren't superb athletes be very, very good players in this league. Aaron Jones isn't a superb athlete. James Robinson, even though he had it falling off, put up some very nice seasons as a very non-athletic running back. Josh Jacobs, even though he isn't a bad athlete, he isn't the most uber athletic piece either. It isn't the end-all be-all at running back. As long as you are very smart, you are patient, you know where to go with the football, you know which lanes and which holes to press when. If you have good contact balance, if you fight for yards, if you have solid enough hands to not be constantly taken off the field, you can do it. And Devin Neal has that stuff. He has those abilities. Again, I really like this player, and I love it big. I would be surprised if he isn't getting a decent amount of snaps at some point during this season. Their next pick, they go Malachi Montavo, a tight end out of UCLA, with the 248th pick, the 32nd pick of the 7th round. Getting this as part of the John Ridgeway trade, another trade with Washington. I'm pretty sure it was last year or the year before. Not a ton of value in that trade. Wasn't a high-end trade. They get this, very back end of the 7th round pick from it. This Scott and I don't get it. I really did not understand this pick for them, just based off of who's in their room. They have Juwan Johnson, who signed a recent extension with them. They have Foster Moreau, who's kind of been a career solid tight end number 2. They have Taysom Hill there, who obviously does a lot of different things for them, but will line up in the wing and the fullback, kind of takes up one of your tight end position slots. And then you bring in Malachi Montavo on top of that. They also have other bodies in their room, not guys that are real locks to make the roster at all, but guys that are in that room, one of them being Jack Stoll, who they actually brought in free agency from Miami. So those are 4 guys that are probably going to make the roster, I would assume. Jack Stoll maybe not making the roster, but since they brought him in free agency, I think he's got a real solid chance. And again, they have other practice squad type bodies, guys that are going to be competing. And the fact that he was taken in the 32nd pick of the 7th means he is no lock to make the roster, even at a position of need. So the fact that they have a lot of dudes in those roster spots, he's taken at such a late pick, I just don't really get it. I think there was a lot of other positions who could have went that they would have had a much better chance of making the roster. Even taking another outside corner, taking a wide receiver. Those would have been, almost not surefire locks, but much better chances, much less uphill battles to make the roster. If Malachi Montavo made this roster, I would be surprised. And for that reason, it's just got to be, and I don't get it. A 6'6", 260-pound tight end, going to be 22 in his rookie season. 6.59 RAS, not very athletic, but a lot of receiving production at 41 receptions on 60 targets for 506 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 12.3 yards per catch. Very nice receiving production for a tight end, and also very nice size as well. I think this is very solid value for this player. Just for the Saints, doesn't really make any sense for me. Was a 2023 Pac-12 honorable mention on honestly worst production. They move UCLA, they move to the Big Ten this year, and he's playing in the same conference as 2 first-round pick tight ends. So makes sense that on better production, he still didn't get the accolades. Unfortunate for him. Started at UCLA for 2 years, spent 2 prior years at Oregon. Again, and I don't get it. Just a very, very, very uphill battle for him to make this roster. Their next pick, with the 254th pick, the 38th pick of the 7th round, They go Khalil Diggs, an edge out of Syracuse. This got an I like it pick. This was honestly very solid for me. This was a draftable player in my opinion, and I wanted them to take edge somewhere in this class. Not one of their like top needs, not a day 1, day 2 need, but just depth overall at some point in this class. You know, they have Chase Young, who they signed to a decent contract. He's been playing better for them in New Orleans. You have Granderson, who is not a bad edge too. Honestly, I don't hate that at all. You have Cameron Jordan, who's definitely regressing to age at this point. Outside of that, not a whole lot of bodies I'm, super riding home about. Isaiah Foskey was a second-round pick 2 years ago, but it doesn't seem like they really like him. He hasn't really showed much to this point. So I really don't hate adding another guy in this room. I think he's got a pretty solid chance to make this roster. A very, very solid pick in my opinion. 6'4", 257 pounds, going to be 24 during his rookie season. Put up a 9.36 RAS. Very surprising. I didn't expect that for him, but we absolutely love to see that type of athleticism this late in the class. Had 7.5 sacks, 3 hurries, 14 TFLs, 45 tackles, 1 PBU, and 1 forced fumble on the season. A 2024 ACC honorable mention in his first year at Syracuse. Spent his previous 4 years at Texas A&M. So you like to see him coming into a new situation and being very productive in year 1 for them. This late in the class, honestly, at 6'4", 257, nice size, nice athleticism with a 9.36 RAS. Don't hate this production. I thought this was a draftable player. Think it's a very solid pick. I don't think he comes in and, competes for an edge 3 job immediately, but he's coming into a room where he is probably going to make the roster, which in the very back end of the 7th, I think is good value, and has a chance to compete for an edge 4 if he can really flash. So I think that's a very good in that sense as well. Just a very solid pick. This was the Saints class, a very, very good class in my opinion. Took some positions I don't think they necessarily needed at the top, but all of their players they got, man, all of their players I think were just good values or great values or just players that I absolutely loved going into this process. So I really, really like this class. Again, my 9th class, an A- for me. Some of the true values or some of the kind of positions that they decided to not go early on brings it down to an A- for me. But still, an A- is a very good grade. It's a very good class. I absolutely love this class. One of my favorite personal classes just because of the guys they got, being some of those guys I really liked coming in. If you really liked the analysis, anything you're seeing up on your board, anything I'm talking about, let me know. Like the video, comment down below. Let me know what you're thinking. I really appreciate all you guys getting to this point in the video. Even if you don't let me know, but you're just watching at this point, it means the world to me. I really appreciate it. I'm getting a lot more, traction on these videos than I thought I would, especially putting them out this late in the process. But I really do appreciate all the support. Thank you guys, and I hope you have a great day.